You said we're going to talk about ghost ships. I'm like, ghost ships? Oh, no, ghost ships. Crap, I did homework on the wrong topic. Hey everybody, welcome to the Paranormal Peeps Podcast. Say that 3 times fast. Apparently I can't. I can't even say it 1 time fast. It's episode 6. So,
Woo!
What comes after episode 6?
7.
7. And we can count. Thanks, Sesame Street. Hey, today we're going to talk about an exciting topic. We're talking about ghost jets, right?
Yeah.
That's what you said.
That's right, ghost ships.
Yes. Ships? Oh, ships. I did homework on the wrong topic.
Oh, I did
So,
too.
I'm going to run to the... Never mind. Yes, ghost ships. Yes, everybody. Ghost ships are ships that are found floating on the water without an actual crew. We're not talking about ships necessarily that are haunted. There are plenty of those. The Queen Mary, for one, is one that's people talk about. Say that's a ghost ship, and I'm like, no, it's a haunted ship. And you could do a whole episode on just the Queen Mary, and maybe we will.
Absolutely.
But for the sake of this episode, we're talking about ghost ships. But first, before we get into that, let's talk about who's here. So let's go around the room from the left to the right. You're going counterclockwise, so imagine in your brains a big round table about 40 feet round. Okay, maybe it's about 4 feet around. A little bit more intimate than that, but take it away, sir.
My name is Josh.
And what do you like to do, Josh?
I like to do podcasts.
I'm Jamie. I'm Laura.
I'm Terry.
And I'm Mike, and I'm wearing a new kilt. Yay!
I noticed that. I thought it was a different pattern.
It is. It's
a different color.
It's actually it's called a tartan. This is the McPherson tartan. My spirit guide,
This is
Mary. This is her tartan.
Is it really?
She was Mary McPherson. This is the McPherson tartan. So
I
yeah.
was going to ask you about that because I thought it was
So
different.
usually I wear greens. This is a red.
It's
So,
beautiful.
but yeah. So
I mean, it's handsome.
rock.
And
You
missing
can say whatever.
Lisa again.
Elisa has decided to quit the show. She is tired of putting up with all of our crap, mostly mine. No, Elisa has had some family issues that are keeping her from us tonight. So we'll hope to have her with us next
On the next one.
episode.
Absolutely.
She's hoping and planning on being there. So, Elisa, when you listen to this, we missed you again.
We love you.
But I will eat your share of the licorice. Ha ha! All right, so anything else before we jump into the topic? Ghost ships! I've never seen a ghost ship, but I saw one on Scooby-Doo, and it was totally scary.
Wasn't there one on SpongeBob too?
I don't remember much from
No,
SpongeBob.
there's one on Supernatural.
Oh, there was one on Supernatural!
Of course.
Because it had the British chick with the cool, what was it? It was a PPK, I think. Walter PPK. So, if you know what that is. If you don't, it's a gun. James Bond also carried a PPK. Just saying. Ghost ships. What do you want to talk about first, Josh? Which ship do you want to go to? Or Jamie? Who? Start us out. You guys pick one. Let's go with it.
Yeah, we'll start with the definition real quick. And Mike touched on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's phantom ships and vessels that have no living crew aboard. It may be a ghostly vessel, such as the Flying Dutchman, found in SpongeBob.
I knew SpongeBob.
And Pirates of the
Awesome.
Caribbean.
Oh, yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean.
You were going to leave that out?
Well,
I mean, SpongeBob's cool, but
SpongeBob come to your mind first?
But
yes,
Johnny,
they did, actually.
But
Really?
Johnny Depp, man.
Well,
Oh, Barbosa.
Or Barbosa's my favorite, yeah.
but you can always consider, too, like, wouldn't the
But it's Bill Nye's ship.
Black Pearl be a ghost ship, too?
No, it's a real ship, though.
It wasn't
Yeah,
at
but
first.
it's not crewed by a living
Oh, you
crew.
know, you're right.
Yeah.
See?
Black Pearl's my favorite.
Black Pearl versus the Flying Dutchman. Who's gonna win?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer.
Dutchman, for sure.
I think the Dutchman. My
Oh, yeah.
my money's on the Dutchman.
So you get the Queen Anne in it. Let's
Yeah.
just talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. Let's forget the topic. Let's just talk about that.
But there's 2 famous ghost ships in the movie series. It works, right?
See, I'm all about Barbosa. Terry's all about who did the Queen Anne? Blackbeard?
Blackbeard.
Yeah, she loves Ian McShane.
Ian McShane.
Yeah. Mm.
Yummy.
Tell you, if I weren't into my wife, then yeah, maybe. I don't know. He's Scottish. You can't go wrong, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's digress. Let's go back. Josh, sorry to steal that from you.
Way off topic.
Flying Dutchman.
Yep.
SpongeBob. Pearl.
So
Okay.
the ships also may be physically derelict, found adrift with its crew either missing or dead. An example of the most famous example of this would be the Mary Celeste. The term ghost ship is sometimes used for ships that have been decommissioned but not yet scrapped. And the term also is used for ships that have been found adrift after breaking loose from their ropes and carried away by the waves and the wind. So,
Or ghosts.
or ghosts. So really, it's just any ship without anybody on board that's adrift.
Yeah, all those ones that allegedly broke away. There's like some ghost up there, like some teenager ghost that's like, woohoo! I'm the king of the world!
The king of the world. Yeah, so let's start off with the most famous one, which would be the Mary Celeste.
Or do you want to build to that one?
We'll start with that.
You just take it away, Holmes.
So the Mary Celeste was found adrift in the Atlantic Ocean in 1872. The ship was found to be without any damage and the sails still up. All of the crew's personal belongings were intact, and a cargo hold containing over 1,500 barrels of alcohol was untouched. So that's a little bit about the ship being found. But let's go back to the full, beautiful history of the ship. So the Mary Celeste was built in Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia, and launched under the British registration as Amazon in 1861. She was then transferred to American ownership and registration in 1868 when she acquired her new name. She sailed uneventfully until 1872 voyage. The Mary Celeste began its voyage on November 7th, 1872, sailing with 7 crewmen, Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, his wife Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. The 282-ton ship battled against heavy weather for 2 weeks to reach Azores, where the ship's log's last entry was recorded at 5 a.m. on November 25th. On December 5th, 1872, about 400 miles east of the Azores, the British brig, known as the Digrata, spotted a ship adrift in the choppy sea. Captain David Morehouse was shocked when he discovered that the unguided vessel was the Mary Celeste, which had left New York City 8 days before him and should have arrived in Genoa, Italy already. So Captain Morehouse changed course to offer help to the Mary Celeste. He sent a boarding party to the ship, and as they searched the Mary Celeste, they noticed that the ship's charts had been tossed all about below deck. The crew members' belongings were still in their quarters. The ship's only lifeboat was missing, and one of its 2 pumps had been disassembled, and there was 3.5 feet of water in the ship's bottom. The 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol was largely intact. And there was a ship's 6-month supply of food and water, yet no crew to consume it. So after they found the ship, they do what's called like a salvage hearing. So that's kind of like an insurance adjustment claim to figure out how much the owners can get back.
That's where they roll in and say, "I found a boat, may I keep it?"
Please, sir, may I have the boat?
If not, can I have $500 for bringing it to you? Essentially, that's right.
Yeah, essentially. The salvage hearing took place following the Mary Celeste's recovery. The court officers concerned various possibilities, everything from foul play to mutiny by the crew of the Mary Celeste, and also a conspiracy to carry out insurance or salvage fraud. But they found no convincing evidence to support these theories. However, unresolved suspicions led to a low salvage awarded. After the Gibraltar hearings, the Mary Celeste continued in service under new owners until 1885, when the captain deliberately wrecked the ship at Haiti in an attempt to collect the insurance. So, in an attempt to commit insurance fraud.
One thing I found is there's a lot of that goes on in a lot of these ships.
Yeah.
Boat owners just seem to be like they're...
Well, I wonder
Not
if
trustworthy.
it's like costs too much to repair, and so it's like, let's just crash it and we'll start over again. We'll just get the money. Because they would be expensive to repair.
Probably. I
wouldn't
mean, this boat was like 20 years old, so I mean, it's like ancient, right?
they? Yeah.
No, it's not old at all for 20 years.
Well, back then maybe. I don't know.
No. Some of these boats lasted for hundreds of years.
They were built to last.
You know, they were built
Yeah.
to last back
Mhm.
then.
Yeah, it's just, I think people, maybe it's one of those things you're like, I'm tired of being at sea and seeing nothing but water, so let's just wreck it, get some cash out of it.
And go get a new job.
Or there's also business goes under too. It's all most of them were trading vessels, and so, sometimes the trade just goes dry.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you have anything I missed?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, if you don't know what denatured alcohol is, it's extremely strong. This isn't like rum that they're carrying, and this is like isopropyl alcohol plus, and so
What would it have been used for?
cleaning. Or
You dilute
you
it.
dilute it for other various things.
So, yeah, isopropyl alcohol is what this stuff's made out of. Or, sorry, the other way around. Isopropyl alcohol is made out of this stuff. And it's about 3% of this industrial strength alcohol. These containers were about 90, I think they said 99% or 90% pure alcohol.
Gotcha.
It's highly flammable. And so that was one of the things that I had read that they were concerned about, that maybe there was some barrels that had leaked. In fact, Terry actually had some information about the barrels.
Yeah, when they got towed in, they went to go unload what was on it, because everything was still on the boat. 9 of those barrels were actually empty. And so those 9 were made out of
Red oak.
red oak, where the rest of them were made out of the white oak. And so they were thinking that because of the oak difference that they had actually leaked.
Yeah, I think Jamie came across a report saying that the red oak was actually known to be a porous type of wood, and so it wasn't going to hold the alcohol very well. Which makes you wonder, in the sense, like, if they knew it at the time, why did you do it? Why would you put even a gallon in there where you know it's not going to hold?
Well, sometimes I wondered about that too. You've got a big, I mean, there's like, they said over 1,700 barrels of this, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they didn't load it all. Maybe somebody tried to pull a fast loader on them or something. I don't know. They should have known. Usually most captains know of everything that's on their boat.
Well, even the deckhands would know. I'm not the deckhands,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The portmasters. They would know. Like, they're the ones that are loading the ship. So
True.
they would know, like, what's
And-
going on. Plus, the alcohol distributors would know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just strange in that avenue.
And all of the seamen were, very seasoned veterans of the sea, from everything that I'd read. But the speculations that I had seen were that it was either a seaquake might have hit and caused, it would be kind of a tempest of the waves, which could have shaken things up and caused it. If those are leaking noxious fumes, there could be a fear of explosion, or maybe it was just too noxious to be on there. If you've ever done like that, we were talking about it the other day. There's a cleaning concoction with vinegar and Dawn that you can spray in your tub and stuff that'll clean your tub. But man, it's strong and it's hard to be in there. You got to open windows and vacate for a little bit. But yeah, so maybe they got off in the lifeboat and they were kind of behind with a rope, and
Because the rope was broken. There was a rope tied to it.
there was a rope tied to the ship that was broken with nothing on the other end, and maybe somebody let go of the rope and they're like, oh crap, there goes the boat.
Yeah, and then you're hosed. So
So
there's some theories or hypotheses that have come about from the Mare Celeste. So, and a lot of them are just complicated by false details and fantasy and stuff. So there's the quakes that we talked about, and then overcoming by alcohol fumes, water spouts,
Mhm.
My personal favorite, attacked by giant squid.
Obviously.
You think that's fantasy? It's not. It's real.
the Kraken.
Exactly.
Have you ever seen it?
No. Well, other than, the movies.
Yeah. And now a hockey team in Seattle.
Yeah, but so if the
that's
lifeboat is missing though, they had time. It wasn't something that snuck up on them. I mean, they had time to get the lifeboat, get in it, and depart the boat. So it wasn't just like, oh, the seas are quaking and I fell overboard, right?
Right.
And then you have paranormal intervention.
See, and that's where, like, if they had the fumes, like, okay, we'll just go get in the lifeboat, float behind it, bring in some fresh air, and... Because also all the navigation equipment was missing, too. And so...
Which would make sense if you're going to try to get into a lifeboat, you would try to at least get home. So I believe, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't they in sight of shore?
I don't remember. I think they said that they were actually within sight of, and that's what confused the captain of the other boat, is he didn't understand because they were within such close proximity.
Yeah, they just left one of the islands. It wasn't very far.
Yeah, exactly.
After leaving that island of the Azores. But if it was aliens, just go on conspiracy theories for the aliens, right? Aliens are smart, right? The aliens would take the lifeboat, knowing that us dumb humans would go, oh, they all evacuated in the boat.
And the navigation, they wanted to know where to go, so we need to take this.
Yep, they would know what the investigations are going to be looking for.
They would.
Aliens are smart.
Foresight, yep.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think actually happened?
Aliens.
All right, so we got one vote for aliens.
Any other votes?
Any other votes?
I think I tend to lean towards they had the fumes of the stuff and
Same here.
abandoned ship a little bit.
Yeah.
Hallucinations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was thinking. Jamie and I were talking about it a little bit, and it was like, if they had that much leakage, right? So if you're talking 6 barrels, right? Or was it 9 barrels? 9 barrels.
9 barrels.
Those are usually about 40-gallon barrels. So you got about 360-ish gallons of this alcohol floating around. So, like, you're getting all this, like, fumes and stuff like that. But if you're around it, you're going to get kind of, like, high.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you start hallucinating. They already mentioned they were in rough weather. So now the waves look, 10 times bigger than they really were. So instead of staying on a boat, they decided to get into a little dinghy and then try to go in the open water with a small boat.
They got in a little dinghy because they were getting a little dinghy?
Exactly.
From the fumes?
So go ahead.
No, if you guys have ever been in, like, the open ocean, or even close to the open ocean, like deep water in a small boat, it's terrifying to be in a small boat. So, I don't know, you'd have to be desperate or terrified in order to get into a lifeboat of any kind in the open ocean.
Would they all be affected though? Because like above, like some of them are working on the dock, or not the dock, excuse me, but the deck, and some are away from the cargo. Would they all be affected by that?
If the fumes are strong enough, I think it would be.
Do you think?
I do.
Even out in the open air?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible.
Personally, I really believe it was that they got in the boat and they had the tow rope behind them and they were just like, well, let's let it air out. We'll get out behind them. We'll follow. We'll be attached to it. If it blows up, we're off the boat. And if we'll let it air out and then we'll go back in
And that's why they didn't take all their
6
stuff.
hours or something, and we'll just kind of pull ourselves back in and then get back on. And they can always check on it. I think somehow they let go of the rope, or it was broken, or maybe a big wave overturned the towboat and the lifeboat, and it got lost. But personally, I think that is what makes most sense to me. It seems very plausible.
Yeah.
Something I would do.
I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm not an experienced crewman.
So you're taking your vote for aliens away. Is that what? Am I getting
I was
that
totally
correctly?
kidding on the aliens.
Oh.
We all know aliens don't exist.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, they so do.
I know
Yeah,
they
they
do.
do.
I know they do.
They totally do.
But no, I think that's what happened. I think it's that whole Occam's razor. The most logical answer seems to be the correct one.
Yeah.
I think that's the most logical to me.
Yeah.
It feels good.
to me.
That does make sense. I never saw anything about the rope, that there being a rope tied to the boat that was broken. So I didn't see anything out in the research. But then again, if there was a rope, that wouldn't make sense, right?
Yep. And there's like 7,000 different versions of the story as well.
Yeah.
So it all just depends on,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part that makes this so difficult is when we're looking back in history, we're looking back 100 and plus years, 100 and some years back, things are going to get washed around and changed, details get muddied, and now it's like, well, what really happened? And everyone's like, well, I don't know. Now it's up to anybody's guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like people think Santa Claus is from the north, who's actually Turkish.
See, who would have known?
All right, so that's the Mary Celeste. Let's go on to our next ship. Which one do we want to go to next, Josh?
Go ahead. Lead us off, Mike.
All right, I'm going to talk about my favorite one of these. It was the SS Beikimo. Did you guys see that? Anything on that one?
No.
Okay, this one's cool. And the reason why this one's cool is because it was within the last 100 years or so, and it was in America, and the sightings of this ship spanned large amounts of time. So it is also known as Alaska's Phantom Ship. It was built in 1914, and the SS Beikimo was a steel-hulled 1,322-ton cargo steamer, and it was used to trade provisions like pelts and stuff throughout the settlements along the Victoria Island coast in Canada and up through Alaska. But on October 1st, 1931, at the end of a trading run and loaded with a cargo full of fur, the Beikimo became trapped in pack ice off the coast of Wainwright, Alaska, during a really bad blizzard. And after a few days, the storm broke, and the ship was abandoned by its crew. It was basically stuck in the ice. If you know what pack ice is, it's basically all the little bits of ice get blown together, and they kind of freeze and solidify. So it's stuck in the middle of this big field of ice. And so half the crew set out across the ice to go to the nearest city to go for help, provisions, and whatnot. The other half of the crew, as well as the captain, stayed there and camped out on the ice next to the boat. And another storm comes up, another blizzard, another night, and the captain said that he couldn't see. It was so thick, the snow and the blizzard was so bad that he couldn't see much past the end of his arm. And so they hunkered down for the night, and I've never been to Alaska in the wintertime, but I'm just going to imagine from those who have been there that sometimes it just gets pretty nasty. Yeah, Jamie's saying yes. So the next morning, after this storm broke, they woke up and found that the ship was just gone. And during the night, it had broken free of the ice, the wind blowing on the big vessel, and I don't know how it all happens, the science, but it had broken free and it was gone. It was just gone, all the way gone. Despite being unmanned, the ship continued to be spotted floating around Alaska throughout the 1930s. Still in 1931, just several weeks later, it was seen floating near Skull Cliff, which is up south of Barrow, Alaska. In 1932, it was seen in the ice of the Beaufort Sea, northeast of Barrow. It was sighted 12 more times over the years. She was last spotted in 1969, so that's 38 years after it was abandoned. It was still intact, still seaworthy between the Icy Cape and Barrow, which is southwest of Barrow, Alaska. In fact, in 2006, the Alaskan government actually sent out made a big search, a big formal search to go find this boat, see what happened to it, and either salvage it or sink it or whatnot. But to me, I thought that's one of my favorites because, it's such a big span. You're talking the 1930s, it's abandoned. And then in 1969, there's this big old cargo boat just cruising out there in the ocean.
Did they ever find it?
No, they never found it.
So my question is, why would the captain camp on the ice? Why would the ice be more comfortable than his living quarters on the ship?
I don't know. The only thing I could think of is if there was fear of the hull not being strong enough
Just with
And
the
so
ice.
with the ice and stuff, some of those ships there, have really thick holes
Yeah.
that are meant to go through the ice
Right.
and to break up ice or whatever.
They didn't
And
work on the Titanic.
I'm assuming that they were afraid that the
That makes
boat
sense.
could, have a puncture in the hole and then go down, and
Shit,
so it's
yeah.
probably safer to not be on it when that happens. That's my guess. I
Yeah,
don't know.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
Well, the other thing too is if without like the engines running and stuff like that, there's going to be no heat or life support on the boat,
Oh, true.
and so you got to keep warm somehow, and so you got to light a fire,
Yeah, that's true.
No light
And-
fires on the boat.
especially if the deck is wood, right?
They'll burn it out.
You just burn a hole in it.
I mean, it was steel hull, right? I did say that. It
Right,
was
still whole, but that doesn't mean the deck.
But the deck might
the
be.
deck
wood.
could have been wood.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems weird, right? That like, it's kind of like if you get your car stuck in the snow, like you would camp outside your car in the snow instead of being in your car.
But they did also take all the pelts and all the cargo off because it had all this fur, right? The trading. And, so I mean, you can probably camp pretty cozy with lots of furs
Yeah.
and tents and
Well, and then you could probably camp pretty cozy.
build a fire in there.
You
And
could probably camp pretty cozy in the hull of the ship too, and curl into the pelts like a
Or
cat in
worms.
the
see, that's what
like a
I.
cat in the hay, right? Just
Yeah.
burrow.
That's
away.
what I would think, but that's what I guess my only
But
solution
the
for why they got off
sinking
was that
thing-
there was a
the sinking
fear
thing
that it
makes
could
sense. Yeah.
could sink. I've been on a boat that's been adrift, and that's scary. That was a houseboat down at. Remember that trip down at Thanksgiving? Yeah, horrifying. Middle of the night, you start hearing the engines all fire up. Like, what's going on? Because the wind was blowing us so bad that it just.
The wind was blowing us so bad we were coming off the beach, and so my dad kept turning engines on to push us back up on the beach, and was
Tie the ropes tighter.
tightening the ropes to the anchors
Retie
and stuff,
them.
and then we kept loosening and then tightening and it was a long
Was
night.
that
Oh,
how like
man.
how?
It was
Yeah.
like wow over
It
Thanksgiving.
was horrific, but that was frightening. And that's just a houseboat. This is a big freaking boat. So
Yeah, did they say how big that boat was? Did they give like dimensions?
I could have sworn I had that, but I don't see it here on my notes. So I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
I can Google it if you want.
Nah, that's fine. I think most of these boats are like 250 plus feet. Like,
Some of them
they're
might have the
big
lengths
boats.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the big chemo. So if you see it, if you go up Alaska way, especially up around Barrow, then Terry found it. 230 feet.
So that's a good sized ship.
Yeah,
But
built in Sweden.
I don't know if you know where Barrow, Alaska is. It's inside the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, it's up on the northwest side, isn't it?
Yeah. So, interesting fact, totally not related, but a 4-pack of single-ply toilet paper before the pandemic in Barrow, Alaska was $23.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
I want to live in Alaska.
Why?
Just because it's so
Because
far.
it's got expensive toilet paper?
Sure.
It's
White
where you get
with
it.
gold.
It's where you get to invest and get a heated bidet.
Yes. No, it just everything is shipped in either by boat or by plane to get into Barrow because it is a port town and there's no roads up there, so that's why everything's so expensive.
Probably has a very small population too, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much
Is it oil?
oil. Yeah, it's pretty much the oil industry.
So
up
they
there.
can afford it, right? All these guys
That's
have
the theory,
nowhere
right?
to spend their money.
Nowhere to spend the money
It's like,
except for
where can I go?
toilet paper.
That was how much toilet paper. I wonder how much a gallon of milk cost.
Oh,
They don't
it's
have
gonna be
milk. They
awful.
just
I
drink
don't
whiskey.
know.
Just drink whiskey; it keeps you warm.
Yeah. But what a lot of people do is they'll go down to they'll fly down to Anchorage, and then they'll go to Costco's and buy 3, 4, 5 pallets worth, and then ship it up on plane, and it's still cheaper.
Wow.
Things
All right.
you didn't know.
So we got a little off topic there, right? So
I
Yeah,
let's,
never
but
do
it's
thought
but
very
it's
much.
Yes.
but it's
Well, that's
fun
not
and
a-
interesting.
it's not a deep thought. That one's just real life in Alaska.
This isn't a documentary about boats. This is life. We're talking about things. This is what we do.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna butcher this name mainly because I don't speak Russian.
No speak Ruski.
I do not.
That's all right. Sean Connery doesn't either. He just says "Yash."
Yeah.
I thought that was a Russian accent when I was a kid. I had no idea.
He's Scottish.
And I'm Scottish. I didn't know.
So the Lyubov Orlova was a 290-foot expedition cruise ship named after the Russian film star with the same name. Her hull was built to Finnish-Swedish Ice Class 1A to withstand the impacts with ice. I have no idea how thick that is.
See, once again, they don't want another Titanic.
Exactly.
They enforce that front of the boat.
But this ship makes sense, though, because...
She was indestructible.
Indestructible. In 1999, the ship was refurbished and chartered by Marine Expeditions for cruises to the Antarctic Peninsula in the year 2000. So, of course, you're going to, make sure that is heavy enough in the front because you're going to go break ice with it. So, in 2002, the ship underwent more extensive renovations. I'm not sure what they did, but it was extensive.
Granite countertops.
They're outfitting it more for the cruises and for expeditions and stuff like that.
Guest cabins.
Guest cabins and the cruise and all that.
And
stuff.
nice porcelain toilets. And
right.
Gold plated.
More of a cruise ship than just a ship.
The Orlova ran aground at Deception Island in Antarctica, November 27th, 2006. She was towed by the Spanish Navy icebreaker Las Palmas. Here's what I find interesting about this. But what I find funny is they named this thing Deception Island, so obviously it's like maybe bigger underwater than it is on top type of deal. So like you knew it was there, but yet you still hit it.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, in 2006,
just the
tip of the island.
In 2006 too, you would have like radar and sonar, and so how do you run aground in 2006?
It happens.
It happens, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, case in point, Suez Canal.
Okay.
Pivot.
So if you're listening to this, last week in the Suez Canal, a giant freighter.
I've been
The world's largest actual
This will
freighter.
tell you when we recorded this. Got lodged in there. For a whole week.
sideways.
It got pushed sideways, and it was the wind that actually did that one in. But still, I mean, you're talking about
they're
blocking
blaming the wind.
They're blaming the wind. They said the wind pushed them sideways, and they ran aground. So that's what they're claiming.
Did they tell us that the first mate's name was John DeWind?
It's entirely possible.
I just had the scene from Austin Powers where we go forward and backwards and forwards and backwards.
Okay. Anyway.
Deception Island. The name should tell you that stay away from Deception Island.
Exactly. September 2010, the Orlova was seized due to debts of $251,000 owed to the chartered company Cruise North Expeditions from a cruise which had been canceled due to faults with the ship. In addition, the 51 crew members had not received a paycheck for 5 months.
And they're still working?
Yeah, exactly.
I would have quit after like 1 week. Come on. 5 months?
Right? Maybe that's the real reason why it ran aground. They're like, you're not paying us? Into the island.
Whoops.
The ship was impounded in Newfoundland, Canada, and in February 2012 was then sold to Neptune International Shipping to be broken up and scrapped. The Orlova sat tied up for 2 years in St. John's Harbor and was finally being towed to the Dominican Republic to be scrapped. Which is interesting because, like, if you're all the way up in Canada and you gotta go down to the Dominican Republic, that's a long haul to just scrap a ship.
And it's sad that they just scrapped these ships.
Well, at least they'd scrap them and reuse them and, make new ships.
Multi-purpose.
And that's how.
Otherwise, if you don't, you have sea yards that are chuck full of boats that aren't doing any, taking up real estate.
Yeah.
So either refurbish them or you take them out and sink them.
Make reefs out of them.
Yeah.
The tugboat Charlene Hunt, owned by American tugboat operator Hunt Marine, was contracted to tow the vessel. The day after departing from the dock, the tow line parted, and the tugboat crew tried to reconnect the line while battling in strong winds in 98-foot waves.
9.8-foot waves.
Oh my gosh.
Let's go with the 98.
98 sounds way better.
Sounds cool.
It was like 22-mile-per-hour winds and like 10-foot waves.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I let 98-foot waves sound way
That's
better.
so much cooler.
9.8.
I so missed the point when I was copying notes over.
Do you see it now?
I'd see it
Oh,
now.
I love 98-foot waves.
Hey,
Let's do
that's
that.
my-
Yeah.
These are sea stories, tales of the sea.
That's my point.
We can exaggerate a little bit.
We're making our own version.
We're
That's
making our own
right.
version. Well, it sounds way more like.
Yes, it
Impressive.
does.
I've been in 10-foot waves, and they're not fun, but it's not awful.
Yeah, 98 sounds more impressive.
Yeah,
I've been
way
in,
more impressive.
I've been in 6-foot waves on a jet ski, where you dip down in the bottom and you can't see anything, and then you come up on the top and you're like, oh, land. Nope.
Yep,
Yeah.
I did that. I did that in a
Horrifying.
kayak
Ugh.
in
It's crazy.
down in the Dominican. I went over
Oh
the
my
reef
gosh.
into deep water, and I was in a little kayak, and I'm like, oh nope, turn around, go back. So Husky Energy contracted the supply vessel Atlantic Hawk with the task of regaining control of the Orlova because it was at risk of hitting, or it was at risk to the oil and gas operations in the region.
And that was about a year later after it broke from the first one.
Wait, it's afloat for a year?
Yeah, because it broke, because it was being pulled.
Oh, I don't have a date on that.
I had a date up on it. In February of 2012 was the original time it was being tugged down in the Dominican Republic. And then the rope broke, and then it was contracted with the other people in January 28th of 2013.
So it's just floating
So
around for
Just
almost a
floating
year.
around.
Almost a year. It was just floating around.
Mm.
And that was when it started becoming a problem for the oil fields
Right.
in the Canadian regions. It's like, we got to move this boat, or we're going to have some
Problems here.
problems
Yeah.
in oil spillage.
Yeah. So they go out and grab the boat, and then they announced on February 1st that on January 31st, the Atlantic Hawk had been successful in gaining control of the Orlova. And then once the international waters, Transport Canada decided to cut her loose, claiming it no longer posed a threat to the safety of the offshore oil installations, their personnel, or the marine environment. The vessel had drifted into international waters, and given the current patterns and predominant winds, it was very unlikely that the vessel would re-enter water under Canadian jurisdiction.
Not our problem.
Not a problem. It's out there.
International waters, I'm not going to take care of it anymore.
I
We're
thought
going to let it
that
float.
was hilarious. We're just gonna push it out. It's like pushing it into your neighbor's yard. It's like, oh, it's your problem.
Yeah. So
It's like, that kills me. It's like, not our problem, international waters, bye.
Yep.
Cut
It's
the
no
rope.
longer in my driveway. It's in the street. Let the city take care of it.
So, and then on just 3 days later, on February 4th, it was located 250 nautical miles east of St. John's, which is 50 nautical miles outside of Canadians' territorial
So
waters.
it was almost back in their waters. Don't worry about
It's like,
it.
I'm coming back.
It's like if you look like at the currents and stuff the way that they are, they kind of run in a circle, so it would just bring it right back around.
Right, exactly. You think they would know that, right?
Right.
And so,
Actually, after reading that and what we're talking about that last night, I actually went and pulled up the charts, the current charts, and I can see exactly what happened.
yeah, and you're like, the water's coming down from the
From the
Arctic,
Labrador, yep.
and then it's going down the coastlines, and it goes down into the Caribbean, and then it goes out, and then goes out towards Africa
Well,
and back up.
it actually goes, it goes counterclockwise. No, it goes clockwise.
Clockwise. Oh yeah, so it goes up.
So
That's
they're pushing it out to sea, thinking, oh, the Gulf Stream will take it off into the North Atlantic drift, which will take it over to Europe. But I think it got a little bit too far north, and there's another side current that comes down from Greenland, and the Labrador current, which comes down from Canada. I can show you the picture. It's beautiful.
So yeah, and so it just came right back close enough to almost be back in Canadian territory,
Yeah,
but it didn't quite make it.
which I find kind of like fascinating that they didn't just sink the ship. Like,
Right.
Because we're talking, present day, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Canadian Air Force could have dropped a bomb on it.
They could've
Yeah,
just
donate
said-
to
They
the
could have
Navy. Let's go-
torpedoed it.
Let's go blow something up.
But once
Exactly.
again, it's not their problem, not their boat.
That's right, that's true. It's in the international waters. We're good. Okay, so according to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, that's like a mouthful
It's
of...
like that's a made-up agency.
It's the Men in Black, really. On February 23rd, the Orlova was spotted roughly 1,300 nautical miles from the Irish coast. See, there it goes. There it got into the right
They
current
caught
and
the
ended
right
up.
drift, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like, what, 20 days later?
Yeah.
19 days later, it was all the way over close to Ireland after it was just right there by Canada.
Yep. And then 1 week later, the vessel was subject of news reports in Iceland and Ireland, and a caution was issued to smaller vessels. So now it's moving definitely over in that.
Getting close.
Yeah. And then March 1st, the Irish media reported that a signal from the Orlova's emergency positioning indicating radar beacon, or EPIRB, was received 700 nautical miles off the Kerry coast, therefore still in international waters. So the interesting thing about these EPIRB little beacon things is they only start going off when they're exposed to water. So people are like, it sunk. It went down. But the Irish Air Corps continued to monitor the region, and a review published in October of 2013 cites the receipt of 2 more distress signals from the Orlova in the mid-ocean, and one signal on February 23rd and another on March 12th. So, did it sink? Is it still floating in northern Irish waters somewhere off of Greenland or Iceland? Or
It's the ocean's huge. The oceans are huge.
Well,
it's a lot of territory.
it is.
So
Well, one of the reasons why they were worried about it hitting landfall is because it was infested with rats, cannibal rats. And so you have all these hungry rats that were going to hit Ireland and then be starving. And so that was one of their fears of all these rats that were infested on it and had turned and were eating each other.
well, they ran
Where
out.
did they come from?
They
though?
ran out of
I don't know.
crackers.
I
Rats get
remember
on
it
board
was
ships, though.
docked
Oh, for 2 years.
for
That's
2
right.
years.
So they're just running up in there and breeding
Where
like
they were just-
rats.
Climb
Yeah.
up the ropes. You've seen American Tail, right?
Yeah, but Fievel is a friendly mouse.
Okay, but there were rats that came too.
That's true.
See, there were sightings of her in 2016 outside of Scotland. But I do have here that as of May 20th of 2020, there has been no reported sightings of her, and experts believe that the ship and her gruesome crew of cannibal rats are now lying at the bottom of the ocean. That was just almost a year ago that statement came out. So this is one of the most current day ghost ships.
Yeah, one of the more current day ones. Of course, now it's going to show up in 2021, right?
Right?
But just knowing it, I mean, everybody knows about this boat by now, right? At least all the nautical agencies, coast guards and whatnot, navies.
Yeah.
So if it shows up, why can't they just say, you know what? Nobody wants that thing. Let's put it down. Because it's got to be a navigational problem.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know?
I'm sure ghost ships in general are navigational
Yeah.
issues because, you're,
You set a course and you go to bed. It's like,
Yeah,
we'll wake up
exactly.
in the morning
and then there's a boat sitting next to you.
in front of you. You get run over. That happens too.
Yeah, especially if you're in a small sailboat type of thing, trying to do the whole round the world type of contest.
It just seems to me like some military would be a great target practice.
Right.
Why
Oh, absolutely.
wouldn't
Absolutely.
they just do that?
It's a free target.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that the U.S. Navy has done that on several occasions. Where they'll take out old warships and use them for target practice in certain areas, and then they make artificial reefs essentially out of the hulls and the carcasses of these. So
Yeah.
it's just surprising that now in this day and age it's like
Just let it go.
push it out.
It's
Yeah.
Let it go.
You've heard of them purposely sinking ships all the time. So why are they just letting this one go?
Yeah,
Maybe they're
it
just
is
afraid that
surprising.
somebody's going to go, hey, wait, that was my boat. You now owe me.
Yeah, that's probably
Get
exactly it
sued.
too.
All right, Terry, tell us about one that, this is one you were telling me about that was actually pretty cool.
So I found out there are pieces of a ghost ship at the White House.
A real ghost
I
ship?
had no idea. This was so crazy. So on November 2nd of 1880, President Rutherford Hayes received a large crate at the White House. And inside the crate, when they opened it up, he saw the most beautiful desk he'd ever seen with a brass plaque that said that it came from... Said it was presented by the Queen of Britain and Ireland to the President of the United States. This desk was made famous by pictures of John F. Kennedy working at it and his son peering out from underneath it. The desk was made from the timbers of the ship, the HMS Resolute. Yes, the Resolute desk was made from a ghost ship.
Wow. That's awesome. That's cool.
The HMS Resolute was sent to the Arctic on a rescue mission for Sir John Franklin. And it got stuck in the ice up there trying to rescue him in 1854. Outside of Viscount Melville Sound,
Melville Sound,
Canada. After 2 years of trying to release the ship from the ice, they abandoned it. So there's where it is, a ghost ship. And it floated for over another year as a ghost ship out there, stuck in the ice. And then it was found by some American whalers, and they towed it into Connecticut. And once the British heard that the Americans had their ship, they wanted it back because it was free from the ice. Somebody wanted to claim a ship and not just let it go. So President Franklin Pierce believed that it would be... Okay, they believed that if the U.S. went back to war with Britain, it would distract the U.S. of the upcoming Civil War, so he didn't want to give the ship back. But then Senate voted, and Senate decided they were going to give the ship back to keep peace with Britain. So when the British got the ship back, it was retrofitted, and it served in the Royal Navy for 23 more years till it was decommissioned, and it was sent to the breaker docks for salvage. And the Queen Victoria stepped in and ordered that the best timbers be taken from the ship, and that several deaths were to be made, and then she decided to send one death to the U.S. as a gift to promote good faith between these countries. And has been in the White House ever since, and has been used by many U.S. presidencies, and has been involved in many of its own conspiracy theories.
Ooh, we're not even going to talk about what happened in the Clinton era. One thing I thought was actually interesting, it said in what I read, the ship drifted 1,200 miles before it was found. In that time, before it was found, 1,200 miles later, off the coast of Baffin Island, before those whalers found it. 1,200 miles is a long freaking ways.
It is.
Yeah, it's a long haul.
For a year, it floated. Well, you gotta say it was stuck in ice for 2 years where they were trying to free it, and then it floated for another over a year. No, something like over 3 years. That it was just
It's just a long ways.
Do you think they left a little note on there that says, if found, please return to Britain?
Return to Britain.
I'm sure they did.
Well, I think the title, like the HMS, Her Majesty's ship, tells you exactly who it belongs to.
Well, yeah, but you abandoned it. When does finders keepers actually come into play?
That's true. It's kind of like in Dances with Wolves. It's like, you have my hat. It's like, I found it on the prairie. You didn't want it anymore. It's mine now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was only a ghost ship for a couple of years, but that's still kind of cool that the Resolute desk that the ship was abandoned for.
I think it's cool too. They repurposed it, and it was back in use. And
for 23 years in the Navy.
yeah.
In the Navy.
Cool.
Well, that shows how well that ship was made to sit in ice for 2 years, drift for another year, and then be repurposed and serve another 23 years.
No wonder they wanted their ship back so bad.
They did a good job making it.
Well, this is back in the 1854 is when it got trapped. So, I mean, this is back when they knew how to make stuff that lasted.
And it would
Not
have
this
been a
cheap
wood
plastic
ship,
stuff,
right? It would have been a wood
Yeah,
hull.
it was wood. It was all wood. Yeah, that's why they made the 3 desks. Well, there's 3 rumored 4. Another conspiracy theory. We'll talk about them.
Yeah, the first metal ships were what? The ironclads back in weren't around for another 20 years or so?
Civil War.
Well, I guess that's about 10 years before the Civil War.
Yeah.
So. But those things were nothing like, those things were kind
No,
of...
because Britain was pressuring us to get rid of slavery too. And so that was why he didn't want to give the ship back. And he's like, well, we'll go to war again. And then they had our own war happening.
Yes, let's distract from a war by starting another war.
Another war.
That sounds great.
That's history, dude.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie, tell us about the specifics. The specifics and the Pacifics.
Okay, so the Joyita, which is also known very much as the Mary Celeste of the South Pacific. So the Joyita is a 69-foot luxury yacht. It was built in 1931 by the Wilmington Boat Works in Los Angeles, and it was built for movie director Roland West. Roland named the yacht after his wife, actress Jewel Carmen, and so Joyita in Spanish means little jewel. In 1936, the ship was sold and then registered to a Milton E. Beacon, and it had made numerous trips south to Mexico and to the 1939 and 1940 Golden Gate International Exposition in San Francisco. The Joyita was considered virtually unsinkable. I mean, come on, guys, where have we heard this before?
Well, and it's a
Unsinkable.
yacht.
Right, unsinkable ship.
Huh?
It's a yacht. It's not like it's a huge ship.
Exactly,
too.
but
Did they have enough
unsinkable.
lifeboats for all the passengers?
I just want to point out Noah's Ark never sunk
That we know of.
and had no lifeboats.
So she had a hull constructed of 2-inch thick cedar on oak frames.
2-inch.
Yeah.
Okay.
2-inch. Does that
That's
make it
not
unsinkable?
very
Doesn't
thick.
sound so
It doesn't. It
grandiose
doesn't,
to
right?
me. Yeah.
Unsinkable. 2-inch.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's wood, right? 2-inch wood? No,
Like
that's
the
not
2x4?
Yeah, it just says 2-inch thick.
Josh, that's
cedar
not
on
2
oak.
inches.
Yeah,
Cedar
that's-
on
that's
oak
wood.
frames. Yeah.
I don't know.
mean,
All right, if
No,
you know
okay,
something
wait.
about shipbuilding and 2-inch thick wood is like amazing,
for a
What
yacht,
year-
Just-
for a yacht.
for a
Go to our
69 foot,
Okay,
Yeah.
for a yacht, yeah.
it's a 69 foot.
go to our
yacht.
Facebook page
We're
and
not
tell
a
us
big
if
ship,
that's
this is
amazing.
a yacht.
If you
This is a
know,
luxury yacht.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Totally.
Okay, so just before the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Joyita was actually acquired by the United States Navy in October 1941. It was then transported to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. There they then outfitted her as a patrol boat. The Navy put her to use patrolling the big island of Hawaii until the end of World War II. So then in 1943, Joyita ran aground and took heavy damage, but since the Navy needed ships, they fixed her. So at this time, new pipework was made from galvanized iron and not copper or brass.
well, older pipes like my house are usually made out of that cast iron. The modern pipes now are copper or even the plastics, but it lasts a lot longer. The older pipes get corroded easier and faster. So
It's weird that you would use galvanized iron on a
On a ship.
ship
that's
because it's going to
always be
just
water.
rust
Yeah.
from the salt water.
Yeah, that's what it says here, though. So in 1946, the ship was surplus to the Navy requirements, and most of all, its equipment was removed. So then in 1948, the Joyita was purchased by the firm Lewis Brothers, and it was at this point that they added cork lining to the hull of the ship, as well as a refrigeration equipment on board. The Joyita was also fitted with 2 Gray Marine diesel engines that provided 225 horsepower, and also 2 extra diesel engines for generators. In 1952, she was then sold to Dr. Catherine Lumala, and she was a University of Hawaii professor, and she would eventually charter the boat to her friend, also known as Captain Thomas H. Miller, or Dusty, and he was a British-born sailor living in Samoa. So Miller, he would then use the ship as a fishing and trading charter boat. Official reports say that on October 3rd, 1955, at around 5 a.m., the Joyita departed Samoa's Apia Harbor, bound for the Tokelau Islands, which was about 270 miles away. The Joyita had originally been scheduled to leave on the noontide the previous day, but due to the poor engine clutch failing, it was postponed. So she eventually left Samoa on just one engine. The voyage to the islands was one of mercy. The island was dangerously running short on food and had radioed that there was also a man that was in need of urgent medical care. He had a gangrene arm. So, reports have it that the Western Samoan government had absolutely refused to charter the vessel because it was of foreign registration and had not been cleared of its papers.
and only had one working engine.
And only had one working engine.
And galvanized steel pipes.
This can't end well. The Joyita was reportedly carrying a crew of 16 members, as well as 9 passengers, including a government official, a doctor by the name of Alfred Dennis Parsons, or Andy, as they called him. So Dr. Parsons was a World War II surgeon, and he was on his way to perform the amputation of the man with gangrene. So also aboard were 2 children and a copra buyer. Can anybody tell me what copra is?
I think Josh can.
Now, I couldn't do this before looking it up, but it's actually the dried coconut kernels.
Correct.
This whole story to me sounds a lot like the SS Minnow. Just saying.
Similarities.
There are a lot of similarities.
So the Joyetta's cargo consisted of timber, medical supplies, 80 empty 45-gallon oil drums, and some food. So the ship's voyage to the islands was expected to take about 41 to 48 hours and scheduled to return with a cargo of copra. And of course I dried coconut kernels there. The Joyetta was expected to arrive on the island by October 5th. Unfortunately, she never made it. So on October 6th, a message was received from a port in the Tokelau Islands reporting that the ship was overdue. Authorities were concerned due to the fact that no ship or land-based operator had reported receiving any distress signal from the Joyetta's crew. So then a short time later, they launched a search and rescue mission. From October 6th through the 12th, Sunderland aircraft of the Royal New Zealand Air Force would cover an area of about 100,000 square miles of ocean during their search. That's a lot. They found no signs of the Joyetta, her crew, or any passengers. So the mystery of the Joyetta grew when 5 weeks later, on November 10th, captain of the merchant ship Tuvalu, Gerald Douglas, he spotted the Joyetta en route from Suva to Funafuti. And I think that's right. That sounds fun. I want to go there. Funafuti.
Let's go.
And let's go.
I'm sure it's haunted. Let's go.
Yes. So the Joyetta was more than 600 miles west from her scheduled route. So the Joyetta had been discovered drifting north of Vanua and was partially submerged with her portside deck awash and listing badly. They found no trace of any of the crew or passengers, along with 4 tons of cargo, which was also missing. The report also noted that a considerable cargo that also included bags of sugar, flour, and copra were also missing. So those who recovered the Joyetta noted that the radio was turned to 2182 KHZ. What's that mean?
Kilohertz.
Kilohertz, which is the International Marine Distress Channel. Also noted that the decks were charred, pointing to a possible fire that likely broke out on board. There was also an open seacock, which is a valve on the hull of the boat that will permit water to flow into the vessel for cooling of the engine or out of the boat, such as a sink or toilet. They are left open or closed depending on the situation. So,
Corroded pipes. Get your pipes updated, kids.
No, I honestly think it was pirates.
well, yeah, because there was cargo missing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the guns were missing too. The firearms were missing too.
So I think what ended up happening is, and it's sad, but I think the pirates took them, more than likely killed them all, and then tried to sink the ship. So I think they opened up the seacock, tried to let as much water in as they possibly could,
Start a fire.
try to get that sucker to sink. Because if it disappears in the middle of nothing, there's no evidence, right? It's gone. So
I think it was aliens.
aliens.
Look at me. I am the captain now.
Well, I mean, aliens got to eat, right? So the flour, the sugar, they
The
gotta get their stuff from-
copra.
The copra, yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
Little do we know, space fuel is actually made out of sugar, flour, and copra.
I heard aliens like pizzas.
Pizza Planet.
Yes. Before they blow up the planet, they're gonna get a lot of pizza.
Eat lots of pizza before it goes at the fire.
Okay,Ve got two. I'll keep these two fairly quick. One of them I think was the most interesting one to me is the Orang Medan. This is June 1947. The U.S. ship Silver Star picked up several distress signals from a Dutch trading vessel called the Orang Medan. A radio operator aboard the troubled ship sent a message in Morse code, and in Russian confused dots and dashes it said, quote, "We float. All officers, including the captain, dead in chart room and on the bridge. Probably whole of crew dead." End quote. So after several more confused dashes and dots, 2 words actually came through clearly. And it said, "I die." And then there was just silence after that. Right? Creepy. So the ship was found 400 nautical miles southeast of the Marshall Islands. This is in the Pacific. When the crew of the Silver Star boarded the boat, it was undamaged and completely seaworthy. The ship was littered with corpses, including that of a dog. The dead bodies were all sprawled out on their backs, and their frozen and allegedly frightened faces of the deceased were upturned to the sun above, with their mouths gaping wide open and their eyes staring straight ahead. So they're all on their backs, they're all just mouths just hanging open, and they're just frozen in fear, looking towards the sky.
Aliens.
Right? Creepy, huh? So there's no apparent signs of injury or foul play. As the crew of the Silver Star was preparing to tow the ship to the nearest port, a fire broke out on the Orang Medan, which shortly exploded and subsequently sunk. Theories have ranged from a vessel carrying a highly dangerous chemical nerve agent to an entanglement with the CIA after a botched experiment, or like you said, an unprovoked alien assault.
What year was this?
This was 1947.
Wow.
So I did see one other report of that said that there were actually the vessel was sailing from a small Chinese port to Costa Rica and deliberately avoided the authorities. So that tells you something that's fishy there.
They're hauling
The reports state that a sole German man survived the accident and that the crew of the vessel was killed by improperly stored sulfuric acid. So, was it aliens?
What would
Was it sulfuric acid?
What would sulfuric acid make you, like, what would the symptoms be?
I don't
Holes
know.
in your skin
but
as
probably,
it burns through it.
I don't
Would
think.
they be like, would it
No, I
be
don't.
described?
No.
Sulfuric, that's a corrosive.
It's a corrosive, yeah. So it will, like, you'll eat through metal.
You get like blisters and.
So
Yeah.
that's not any symptoms,
No.
like the way they were found or anything doesn't
no,
point
but,
towards that.
no, but what it does point to is nerve agent.
It could totally be a nerve agent,
Yeah.
which throws in that whole CIA possibility of a botched experiment.
Well, let's see, 46
But-
would have been after World War II, right?
Yeah, 47 is what it was.
Yeah, so that would have been after World War II. So, because I was like, well, nerve agents existed back then. So they actually used them in chemical warfare started in World War I. So we would have had those types of things, and those were the things that were being tested in the concentration camps. So that stuff existed. So yeah, it really sounds like they had some
Maybe they got buzzed.
really bad juju on board, and they tried to escape the authorities and
Got zapped.
got zapped and broken container.
Mark Hoffman effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense, but still, that would be totally creepy. You get on a boat, that's a creepy message. And then you get on the boat, and everybody's just sitting there all just
Would anybody here want to be the one person to get on a ghost boat and see what's there?
Yes,
negative.
I would.
Negative
Not
ghost
alone,
right?
but I would definitely go with
You know how many
somebody.
people
I'll
go
go
on
with
there
you,
by
Josh.
themselves to go and see what
Haven't
was
you
on
seen the
it?
movie Ghost Ship? Heck no. It doesn't end well.
I couldn't make it through with the first 5 minutes of the movie.
No, I didn't watch all either. Okay, one more really quick, and then I will desist. This one's called, the ship's called the Seabird. It's a merchant brig. It was commanded by John Huxham, summer of 1750. Okay, it's seen sailing normally towards Newport Harbor in Rhode Island. Upon closer look as it got closer to land, it was discovered that the ship had no crew. It could have probably and should have met a violent end on the rocky coast. If you've ever been to Rhode Island or Connecticut, there's not a lot of beaches, it's rocks. And so it should have, but it didn't. Somehow it sailed right through the breakers and gently came to rest on Easton Beach, where a rescue party could climb aboard. The only souls found on the board were the ship's cat and dog. The crew and one lifeboat were missing. No reason for departure could be identified. The kettle above the stove appeared to have been boiled that morning, and breakfast was still laid out on the galley's tables. The large lifeboat was missing, so the crew must have abandoned ship. But they must have been in sight of land when that happened. I mean, the shipping routes all along there, or along the coast. So, but the crew and the lifeboat were never found. Strangely enough, the next day, the Seabird dislodged from the beach and sailed back out of the harbor, never to be seen again. Alone. Unmanned.
Was the dog and the cat still in it?
I think they probably took the pets off.
I don't know.
found them new homes.
But could you imagine
Maybe-
a drowning ship and then the cat and the dog make it to land?
Well, that's the funny thing, yeah.
Well, why would you leave them on board? It's like, oh, house burning up. Good cats. Let's go.
Hey, have you ever tried to herd a cat?
Yes.
Yeah, try
Yeah,
it. It does
yeah.
not work.
Maybe they couldn't get them, yeah. But maybe the cat and the dog worked together and they piloted the ship into the shore.
It's possible. One on one side of the wheel,
Yeah,
one on the
The
other.
dog gets up there, barks left, right, and the cat's up there on the bridge just steering the boat. Stranger things have happened.
Duh, that's true.
All right, those are mine.
All right, so let's go to one of my favorite ones, which is the Octavius. So the story begins in 1761 when the Octavius docked in the port of London to take on cargo, destined for China. This majestic sailing ship left port with a full crew, the skipper and his wife and son. They arrived safely in China and unloaded their cargo. This doesn't sound much like a ghost ship.
But it took them a
story yet.
year. It took them a year.
Right, it took them a
To
year.
China.
And so the reason for that is because at that time they had to sail around. They had to sail around Africa, around India, and then up the coast. And so
Yeah,
it's going to take a year.
Yeah,
It's going to take a while to get
the
there.
Cape of Good Hope in Africa or the Cape
Yeah.
Horn in the Americas.
So the weather had been unseasonably warm. They're like, it's really good. It's 1761 or 1762 now, right?
Modern age.
Let's take the Northwest Passage. At this time, it had never been done. So
Challenge.
they-
Dun, dun, dun.
Challenge
So-
accepted.
If
Yeah,
you don't know
exactly.
the Northwest Passages, Google it.
and let's just say they never made it. So this ship comes along, and it's named the Herald, and they're up in the Northwest Passage. They find the ship, and so they start investigating, and they were troubled by the sights and wonders what could have been, and they wondered what could have made the entire crew and their captain die in the positions that they were found. They're all just frozen in place. So
Could it have been the cold?
it definitely could have been the cold. But you think about it, right? Like, people just don't, like, freezing to death isn't instantaneous generally.
It's not like you're sitting there pooping or whatever.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm dead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
They
like,
get hypothermia and then they go
Oh.
crazy.
Maybe it was.
that's just true.
Oh,
But usually, like, it's such a slow process.
Thoughts though. I'll tell you at the end.
Okay.
You said something and it just triggered a thought.
You might have it.
I might.
So the people fled the Octavius, taking the logbook of the captain with them. The last position log put the Octavius 250 miles north of the Barrow, Alaska. And they concluded that this is where the captain and his crew died. So they figured they died in the Barrow of Alaska, and they just kind of floated along.
Through the Northwest Passage, ironically enough, because they were found over by Greenland.
They were found in Greenland, and so this is the
So
first.
they made it.
This is the first ship to make the Northwest Passage. Just happened
were
to
all
do
dead.
without a crew.
They showed the way.
They showed the way.
Just didn't survive.
So the Herald's crew believed that the Octavius was cursed and left it adrift. And there have been no other recording sightings of the Octavius since.
So one of the things that I thought was fun about this is they said that the crew were all in their quarters, and the captain was sitting at his desk with his pen frozen in his hand in front of the logbooks, right?
Yeah.
Like he's trying to fill out a birthday card for somebody at work and he just can't think of something to say. Okay, so theory. If you want my theory, real quick.
Go for it.
You ever see the movie 2012?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a superstorm, and all of a sudden there's a major downdraft of cold air, and
It's the eye of the
it's like
storm.
the instant freeze.
When you're in the eye of the
yeah.
storm, there's that instant freeze, and they had
Right.
to get out of this. Yeah.
So that's a possible scientific thing. I mean, it's not it's documented that it's happened. It was a movie in the 2012, but nonetheless, maybe that was a flash freeze type of an event, and they just froze, and he was still trying to think of something
It's possible. I mean,
witty
It
to
makes
put in the.
sense.
see, my thought is it's kind of like one of those oh shit moments in their sense, right? Because if they traveled around Africa and Indiana and stuff. It was warm. It was hot. They didn't have cold weather gear.
That's
Nope.
true.
So you now take the Northwest Passage, which goes over Alaska, through the Arctic Circle, and it's gonna be cold.
Being
And
cold, yeah.
so they probably ended up
Between
into
Canada
a
and England back down into.
and so they probably ended up into a heavy winter storm, and that was
Totally
it.
unprepared.
Even if he passed out, he dropped the pin. Though.
Right.
That's what I don't understand.
Well,
Maybe it had
that's
little gel
not
things
that's
on it.
not true. I have seen someone pass out with a chalupa in hand and not drop it.
Shut up, Raymond.
That's impressive.
In
Okay,
this
but
room.
see, chalupa is so much different than a pen.
It is, but it was a windy road, and it was 20
I
miles.
guess I should take that. I've seen people fall asleep with pens in their hands at work.
See? So I mean, it's
Honestly.
You wake up and then you have to line down your paper.
So what I find amazing though is the actual first successful live travel through the Northwest Passage was 1906. So this was 145 years before it ever been done.
Yeah, but they knew they were doing it, and they probably had coats and blankets and.
Well, sure, they were prepared. It took them
Yeah.
like 3 years, I think, to get through.
Wow.
And I think it took them quite a while to actually make a successful journey through the Northwest Passage. But they were prepared to do it. Where these guys were just like, hey,
Let's do it.
shortcut. Let's go that way.
It's warm.
Well, you know, taking,
Yeah.
taking shortcuts doesn't always work out. I mean, that's what happened with the Donner Party. Oregon
Right.
Trail went north. They're like, oh, we'll take the whatever something's cut off that runs down through Salt Lake
Hastings,
and across
wasn't it?
Hastings cut off. Yeah, runs across the Salt Flats. It'd cut lots of time. Nope.
Didn't work out well.
They don't know about springs in Utah.
Yeah.
We're here 70 today and 40 tomorrow.
Right?
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a crazy attempt on their part to even try that trip.
But definitely a true ghost ship though, because it's
True ghost
sailing
ship.
found with a completely dead crew and.
Yeah, and that goes on the point too. Like you find it and you're like, yep, we're off this one. Let them float. Bye bye. So, and there's the crazy thing about ghost ships is there's tons of them out there.
Oh, I've got like 30 more on my sheet here
Yeah.
that we're not going to talk about.
Yeah, and they go from legend to real, and so I started looking and doing a bunch of the research, and I found that there's ghost ship legends in the Caribbean and in South America, and they're just all over. And so it's something that, you know, as much as we've been seafaring as a society in the world, we're just going to have lots of those creepy stories.
We can talk about this for days.
Well, in the oceans,
Absolutely.
you know, I think we know more about a lot of stuff in space than we do about the oceans. 80% of the Earth's ocean floors are uncharted.
Right.
We don't even know anything about the oceans.
Yeah, and it's because we're mostly ocean, right? The Earth is mostly ocean and less landmass. So, yeah, I mean, there's just lots to see in there.
I learned that from Godzilla versus King Kong
Education.
about the ocean.
Educational movie, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we want to touch on one more fantastical or legendary, I
it's
guess,
the one
ghost
ship
ship.
everybody's waiting for us to talk about.
Absolutely.
The SS Minnow.
Yes. And that would be the one that Laura correctly alluded to was on SpongeBob, which is the Flying Dutchman.
I have something that's interesting, not even related to the ship, but it's called the Flying Dutchman.
Uh-oh.
Was it the
It's kinda
movie about
dirty.
the? Oh, never mind.
Oh,
Is it a position?
Yeah, apparently I didn't know this. So as I was kind of looking up stuff about
a
the
position.
Flying Dutchman. So
Let me Google that.
well, I'll just read it to you.
Okay.
Okay, so it says the Flying Dutchman. Okay, this didn't used to be a specific deviant sexual act. It was just a phrase that sounded dirty and would be shouted out during intercourse on occasion simply for the novelty factor. And that's my knowledge of the Flying Dutchman, y'all.
I learned something new today.
So next time you're in the act, yell out "Flying Dutchman" and you're part of the club.
Let us know how it works out for you.
Be part of the Ghost Ship Club.
She's gonna go, what? It's
Sorry.
gonna kill the mood.
I
Anybody
can
else?
go so many directions with this, and I'm holding
Oh,
back right
Well,
now.
maybe that's
Yeah,
part of
but
it.
do you know
I've got a
what
lot,
Dutch oven
too.
is?
Dutch oven.
Flying Dutch oven.
The
The Dutchman is the Dutch oven. While
Oh no!
Naughty. You took a bad turn.
How far do we want to go with this? My wheels are spinning here.
I think we already have the explicit mark on our podcast, so
Elisa, if you're listening to this, earmuffs.
We're sorry. This is the time to tune out.
no kitties, please.
Too late. All right, let's talk about the real Flying Dutchman, the ship.
Shit.
The ship. So it's said that the. Do you have more on? Do you have it? Okay. So it's said that the Flying Dutchman can never make port and is doomed to sail the ocean for eternity. The origins are that it was built in the 1600s, so it was really old. This is back in the golden age of the Dutch East India Trading Company. And so that was a mega company that had a stranglehold on the spice trade throughout the 1600s and 1700s. It was a Dutch man of war, and it was actually lost just off the coast of the Cape of Good Hope. That's down South Africa. Every soul on board perished after being violently ravished by a tempest. That's a storm for you unsea folk. Within days, numerous other trading vessels reported seeing a ghostly, ethereal vessel out in the midst of the ocean, flying the exact same colors, that's the big flag they fly, as the Flying Dutchman. It gathered notoriety as the worst omen you could ever hope for. It was a phantom ship that heralds the demise of an entire crew. With sightings that actually continued well into the 19th and 20th centuries. It was even seen by King George V in 1881 off the coast of Australia, and 13 other men on board saw it as well. On that trip, one of the crewmen who had first sighted it, days later fell from the mast onto the deck, and as King George put it, he was smashed to atoms. Smashed to atoms. That's how kings talk, right? I'm only a lord, so I don't know quite how kings talk.
Do you know though that so King George the Fifth, right? So I was reading part of his journal or whatever, and what he wrote about it is that the encounter occurred at 4 a.m. when he saw the when the Flying Dutchman crossed their port bow. They saw a strange red light as a phantom ship, all aglow, in the midst of which light the mast, spars, and sails of break 200 yards distant. But then he also wrote, there was something else he wrote, because it appeared twice. It appeared like at 10 a.m. the next day.
Isn't it an omen of doom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see the ship, it means
You're
someone's about to
in
die.
trouble.
Usually it's the whole crew. And if you go into the lore within Pirates of the Caribbean, which follows the lore of it pretty
Forced to
good,
serve on his ship.
then you're forced to serve on the ship. You can either die or you can serve on the ship and live. And so that's why going in Pirates of the Caribbean, they're serving on the ship so they can eventually be released, or something to that effect.
And slowly become part of the ship.
That's the trick of it. I don't know. That's the movie.
Yeah.
What did you have, Josh?
No, I was just thinking of in that movie, actually, in the first one, when oh crud, that snooty British guy that was supposed to marry Miss Swan.
Oh my gosh.
I forget his
We can
name.
see his face.
Yeah.
Oh, what is his name?
Remember, he grabbed Jack Sparrow's arm and's like, "Oh, had a brush-in with the East India Trading Company, huh? Pirate."
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that was a lot of fact. The Dutch East India Trading Company was actually a big conglomerate. So there's a lot of the fact along with that movie that all the legends are based on.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's being cited into the 20th century. I mean, I was alive in the 20th century. All of us here were alive in the 20th century.
Yeah.
So, and this is a ship that was built in the 1600s. You know,
Norrington.
Norrington.
James Norrington.
Ah, there we go.
So it's pretty cool that people still see, and maybe people still see it. I don't know.
Yeah, and you gotta wonder because like if it's actually out there in that avenue, then you would be having some sort of paranormal experience, right? Because you're not, generally speaking, tall ships don't roam the seas anymore.
No.
I mean, I've seen a handful of tall ships, but they've usually been docked in harbors and stuff.
They
like
take them out on the 4th of July in Boston Harbor, and
We saw one in the
Yeah.
harbor in Scotland.
yeah,
We saw one. It was really cool.
that. Yeah, and
they're museums mostly.
and I saw one at Tacoma
Disneyland.
Park. Yeah, Disneyland for sure.
Just
The
kidding.
Columbia. But no, it was in Tacoma Harbor.
Okay.
So they have one in the Seattle area that they bring out, for the 4th of July festivities and stuff like that. So
All right, did you have any other ones you want to talk about?
I don't actually.
So just a couple other ones we didn't touch on that I want you guys all listening at home to go Google.
Homework time.
Go look up the Governor Parr, the Zabrina, the Ginseng, the Resolven, the Kaz 2. That one's actually, Terry and I were talking about, we remember that one
I
happening.
remember that one on the news.
There's the Seo, which one actually had a mummified captain on board. There's the Carol A. Deering. That's one that we had talked about before the show. We didn't get to. The Belle Amica.
so
The
many.
Brian Amaru. The Jenny. Yeah, there's tons of them, and you could go through YouTube video after YouTube video.
Yeah.
Story after story. There's lots.
Well,
So
And you got to figure, right? We've been in the water for over 1,000 years, right?
Yeah.
Out in the
beyond.
oceans, yeah. And so there's going to be, you have 1,000 years of history of sailing, that there's going to be ships and stuff out there that from that far back until today that have been ghost ships just floating around.
Yeah, it happens. So go find a rabbit hole. Go enjoy. We had a lot of fun putting this together and researching a lot of these ships. And I think go do some, like I said, go down a rabbit hole and have fun with it.
Absolutely.
There's a ton out there. In fact, send us another list.
Yeah.
Or don't.
With that, definitely check us out on Facebook at the Paranormal Peeps Podcast, and go ahead and send us a comment about your favorite ghost ship or anything
Have you ever
paranormal that
seen
you
a ghost ship?
Your favorite
Yeah.
podcast personality on the show. Laura's over there going, that's right.
That's me.
If you don't have anything positive to say, don't make any comments. But
Yeah, you can also find us on Cold Spot Paranormal Research on Facebook. So you can find our page there. You can also find us on YouTube at Cold Spot Paranormal Research. You can find us on Instagram at
coldspot_paranormal_research.
Thank you.
Thank you. And tune in next time where we will be doing a live. Well, not live. I'm sorry. We will be doing.
Well, we'll be alive.
We'll be live, but our
We will be alive.
yes,
Hope so.
I hope
but
so.
our podcast will be on a recent investigation, and we'll be doing it at the place we're investigating.
So it's kind of almost a current investigation. We'll take a break from our investigating to come talk to you kids. You're so blessed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We will be on a two-night investigation.
Should we tell them where we're going? Should we give them a clue?
It is located in the western United States.
In a land in the Western Hemisphere, there is a place known to be haunted. That's where we'll be.
Find us there.
There's nothing in that.
No.
You're gonna have to tune in next time to find out where we are. We'll be.
Stay ghosty, my
Until
peeps.
then, peace out, Girl Scouts.
Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps Podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_. research.